Hello, and welcome to our Seabird chat broadcast. So this is our first attempt at having a so-called Seabird chat, and the idea sprung out of the realization that there are a lot of Seabird researchers around the globe, and there's a relatively great portion of us on Twitter. And we hope that today's chat can be stimulating and encouraging for some of you and interact with other fellow scientists and Seabird interested people. And we hope that these chats may possibly become a regular event. So today's Seabird chat is particularly dedicated to those of you who may be new to Twitter or new to the whole Twitter conference business. And we've found some very nice and clever guests that will share some of their insights into using Twitter and participating in Twitter conferences, including last year's winning presenter.
Thanks, Shu. Today's conversation will be centered around 6 questions about the upcoming World Seabird Twitter Conference. As we present the questions to our guests on the broadcast, we will also tweet them with the hashtag #Seabird_chat, which should be up here. The questions will each be labeled question 1 through 6, and we hope that many of you will give your own input to these questions. All you have to do to make sure that you can follow the chat is to follow the hashtag #Seabird_chat and label your answer tweet to the corresponding question A 1 through 6. Another way to make sure that things don't get so entangled is if you retweet the question, choose the option quote tweet, and that way your answer will appear above the question that was originally tweeted out. Though we've come up with 6 key questions, we would also welcome any additional questions. So you can just tweet them using the hashtag #Seabird_chat, and we'll try to bring them into our own chat as well. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and move into introductions. So I guess we should introduce our hosts, and then within introductions, we will talk about our names, our Twitter handles, our physical location, and then also our research interests. All right, so I'm one of your co-hosts today. My name is Corey Clatterbuck, and my handle is @CocoTross. I'm currently located in San Diego, California in the USA. And I'm mainly interested in seabird ecotoxicology, finding emerging contaminants that are in marine systems around the globe.
And I'm Shurer Hammer. My handle is just my first name. And I'm based in Scotland at the moment, and I'm sort of in between projects, you could say. I have a couple of small projects running, one on mice and one on Arctic skuas, but much like Corey, I'm interested in ecotoxicology as well,
Yeah, hi, I'm Sasuke Janeski, and my Twitter handle is @Saswish. I'm currently based in Ireland. I'm German, but anyway. And I'm working on spatial ecology and seabird species, where I'm doing what I'm currently doing as my research masters. So the reason why I'm here is because I'm at the moment the co-chair of the World Seabird Twitter Conference.
Hello, yeah, I'm Tom Evans, or up there, Thomas Evans on Twitter. And I'm movement ecology, mostly focusing on foraging behavior and studying gulls and common guillemots or common moors, and that's mostly with GPS tracking.
Hi, I'm Elsa Jay. I'm based in South Carolina in the US, and I work at Clemson University. I tweet under @ProjectPelican, and our work here at Clemson with the South Carolina Cooperative Fish and Wildlife Research Unit. It's mostly spatial ecology on seabirds in Gulf of Mexico, Atlantic coast, and Caribbean.
Thank you. I should add that a couple of more people are joining the Seabird chat, although they're not on this broadcast. They will be on Twitter right around now, actually. They're Alice Travail. Her handle is just Alice Travail straight. She was the winning presenter at the first Twitter conference. And the second guest to join the Seabird chat is Nina O'Hanlon, and that's Nina_O'Hanlon, who is also a bit of a Twitter wizard. Yeah. So before we get to the questions that we have lined up for this Seabird chat, I would like to ask Saskia to talk us through some of the aspect of the upcoming Twitter conference.
Yeah, so I presume everyone, or maybe the majority of people probably know by now what the World Seabird Twitter conference is, but just to give you a small overview. So it's now the third time this event is running. It's an annual event, and basically it brings together seabird researchers from all over the world, presenting their research in 6 tweets. Unfortunately, if you now go like, oh, this is amazing, I want to sign up, too late. So the deadline was on Tuesday, and we got an amazing 125 presentations from all 6 continents. So it's brilliant, and it's from 25 countries. And yeah, we had some problems covering continents such as Asia and South America, but we had loads of like presentations from there this year. Numbers increased drastically compared to the first time, and it seems like the number of presentations is steadily growing every single year. So it's just like a really great opportunity to meet other seabird researchers. It's free. It's very carbon friendly, no traveling around the world. You can sit comfortably on your couch. Pretty much it.
Awesome. Okay, thanks, Saskia. For those people who are already signed up, how will they know when they are supposed to tweet their presentation?
So I presume that's a question that went to me.
Yes, sorry.
No, it's grand. So we will come up, so this is the next step we're in right now. So we set up a schedule. So we come up with a complete abstract book. We will try to make it interactive this year as well. So people will know beforehand when their presentations are. They're able to tweet and be present, ideally.
Cool. And then
do you have sorry.
No, go for it.
Do you have an idea of how many have signed up by now?
You mean like how many presentations?
Yes.
Okay, I thought I said that before. It's 125 presentations. I'm pretty sure I said this before. Anyway.
Sorry.
No worries.
And then in your experience, how does questioning work after you give the presentation on Twitter?
Yeah, so usually what people do is you will have a 15-minute time slot assigned. Everyone will have that. That's giving a presentation. You have your 6 tweets to tweet within that time frame. And usually what people do is like they try to get them out relatively quick at the beginning. And people start asking questions already while the presentation is going on, so while the tweets are coming out. And the really important thing is obviously to always use the hashtag so everyone knows what this kind of relates to and who's addressed and who's asked a question.
Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, Saskia. I appreciate your input. It's one of the organizers of this year's Twitter conference. It's very needed. Thank you. All right. So now we'll go ahead and move on to our guest questions, and Saskia is included in some of these questions, but Tan and Yvonne can go ahead and be prompted to answer the following 6 questions that we've talked about earlier that will also be available on Twitter using the hashtag #Seabird_chat. So the first question that I would like to ask you all is, what are some of the most important things to remember after setting up a Twitter profile as a scientist? So imagine that you've just signed on to Twitter and you've got your Twitter handle. How would you set up your profile before even thinking about setting up your presentation for the World Seabird Twitter conference?
I think you should decide who your audience is. Like, why are you tweeting? Are you tweeting to present only your research, like we do for our project? So we're trying to get people to do band reciting on the Gulf for our pelicans. That's how it started. And then if you want to be more like an outreach SciComm person, you can also tweet about your life and stuff like that, like show that you're a normal person. So it's probably important to decide what kind of tweeting you want to do.
Awesome. Yep.
Tom, do you have any insight?
Yeah, so yeah, I'd suggest make sure you fill in, there's a space for a short kind of biosketch. So just write sort of, you know, what species you study, your general questions, so people know who you are, and put where you're based. And you can put a link to one website. So I would suggest either linking to the lab where you're based, or you could link to ResearchGate or Google Scholar Profile, for example. Yeah, and put up a profile photo as well. And for a profile photo, I'd suggest something where you can actually see your face reasonably well, so people can recognize you, say from conferences or elsewhere that they might have met you. And it's really cool if you can put in your study species as well. So a field photo is nice. Yeah.
Saskia, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, not really. I mean, the most important things were kind of said, but I think the really crucial thing for me was when I opened my Twitter account is if it's for science purposes, that's what it's for. So try to keep it scientific, try to communicate science. If you want to get into outreach, no question, but like no one really wants to read about your breakfast or your lunch meal. So just be aware what's your audience and what you're kind of focusing on before.
Great, thank you.
Can I say something else?
Yeah, go for it.
So I know this is about Twitter and everything, but you should remember that Twitter shouldn't be an end in itself. It should be a tool for you to do some outreach and talk to people about your research. So you can do it through a blog, through a Facebook, your website, but do it in real life as well. Try to get into science events around where you're based, or when you're in the field, explain to people what you're doing and things like that.
Totally. And
yeah, I think that's a really important message, that people are more likely to respond to you as a tweeter if you if you seem like a real person. So participating in conversations as well, retweeting others and replying to other people might be a really positive thing. And I would like also to and some of the sort of more scientific conversations that are going on under specific hashtags, such as Seabird chat now, but also Seabirder Saturday. There's PhD chat. Actual living scientist was a very popular weeks ago, and many other sort of conversations going on really among academics.
Yeah, I think all of those hashtags can be helpful both in the scientific realm and also just, again, seeing scientists as people and working with science communication as well. I think using all of those tend to round out at least your Twitter personality. So moving on, kind of related to that, for those of you that have participated in the World Seabird Twitter Conference, what in your view are the benefits of participating in the conference and engaging in the World Seabird Twitter Conference? Maybe we can hear from Yvonne first.
Okay. Well, I think it's, as Saskia was saying, there are people from all over the world, and a lot of them. So it's a great way to learn about research going on from this last year, since the last conference or things like that. And you can potentially reach a very broad audience, so you can present your research to a lot of people. But I think also for us as scientists and wannabe communicators, it's a great exercise to present clearly and concisely your research, and to to do that.
Yeah, I think the point of getting a wider audience and making sure that lots of other people can hear about your work beyond what's done at a traditional conference or via publication. I think that's one of the huge advantages for sure for this conference. Do Tom and Saskia have anything to add?
Yeah, I think most of the points actually were covered already. But yeah, I would say, yeah, in both you can reach out to a wider scientific community. So the World Seabird Conference obviously can't be held every year, but the Twitter conference can be. But we can also reach beyond the seabird scientists to, whatever your study topic, if it's movement ecology, other movement ecologists, or if it's ecophysiology, other ecophysiologists. And definitely also reach out to, there's so many people interested in nature and in birds, particularly on Twitter, so reach out to them too. So yeah, I'd say those are the benefits.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think the really big benefit of Twitter is that it's not only engaging like the core seabird community, which it also does, but it's engaging like last year more than 2 million people at the same time. So people that are just reading about it, getting information about it. And especially, I mean, yes, seabirds are amazing, they're charismatic and beautiful, but they're also a little bit of niche. So spreading kind of like some information and making people aware out there, even from a conservation perspective, is just a really important way of sharing your research and communicating it. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. At my university, I am the only person here who studies seabirds. So not only is it great for me to find a community of other seabird researchers via the World Seabird Twitter Conference and on Twitter in general, it's also really important to show how my research also fits into their research interests as well. So I think especially what Tom hit on about, getting into movement ecology or ecotoxicology, whatever your field is beyond just seabird research, I think it's also really important as well. So let's go ahead and move on to our third question. I think I'll start with Saskia on this one. When you, and Yvonne kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, when presenting at the World Seabird Twitter Conference, what do you consider to be the main audience, and how would this influence your presentation?
This is a tricky one because it's almost like you're choosing who is your main audience yourself. Because if you want to, you can make it as specific as you like, and then you make it very applicable to other seabird researchers working in your field, so you can communicate with them. But it's more really reaching out to the public, and when you then like kind of talk about it in a more general context, that kind of like gives you like a different on it. Not really answered the question properly.
That's okay. I mean, it's a hard question to think about whether it's a Twitter conference or any kind of science communication, right? So you have to think about your audience pretty in depth. Do either Yvonne or Tom have answers about their own experience or who you crafted your tweets for in previous Twitter conferences?
Yeah, I think in my mind, the audience is 50% scientists and 50% general public. So it's really about trying to get, complicated ideas across, but still keep it simple so people can understand it. But and then if you want to reach scientists, you can add some like Easter eggs in your graphs or videos or whatever. You add some confidence intervals or models or parameters and stuff like that. So scientists can understand it, but people don't have to really have to read only that.
Yeah, I really agree with that. I think, yeah, I mean, we should think of not just one audience, but both Seabird researchers and beyond. And I think it's possible. I mean, you have a few tweets, so it's possible to use a slight mix of some that are a bit more in detail, a bit more technical, and use some that reach out a bit wider. And also, you can use more than one photo or one figure per a tweet. So you maybe make the first one that will maybe show up first, a sort of simpler one, and then maybe a kind of supplementary figure almost. Mm-hmm.
Great. I think we'll show some examples of that a little bit later on during today's broadcast as well.
So going on to question number 4. That your presentation reaches the greatest possible audience, or the greatest number of people, I should say. Maybe tackle that first.
Who, me? So as a non-English speaker, not native speaker, I think you need to make sure it's an international event, so make sure your grammar and your syntax are easily understandable. Don't tweet like you speak, because especially if you're an English-speaking person, because not everybody will understand it. But well, so I think the point of Twitter is the way to get more a bigger audience is doing retweets and stuff like that. So you want to get retweets. That's the only way you will get more publicity on your research. So attract the eye, put nice pictures, put simple graphs, try to learn about infographics, so you can add that. But then in the same idea, don't respect your audience's intelligence. Don't think people are too stupid to understand everything. So don't be afraid to really explain complicated things and to present them, I think. Anybody else?
Tom, do you have anything to add to
that? Yeah, I mean, I think having sort of nice graphics is important. And I think, I have kind of mixed feelings about having nice photos, because I feel sometimes tweets just get tweeted because of a nice photo. But I think that's not a bad thing, because I think people see the nice photo, but then they read the tweet, and then they're like, oh, this is going on, and then it can be a way of kind of pulling people in who wouldn't have otherwise been pulled in. So I don't think one should be afraid of that, actually. So I think that's a good thing. And I mean, we're lucky we work with beautiful species, so it's not a problem to find a nice photo. And my most kind of viral tweet I had actually quite recently was using a GIF. So if you can make some kind of moving graphic, then that's a cool thing to do. It works obviously especially well for tracking data, but I think you can also use it in, if you know Hans Rosling, recently passed away, Swedish public kind of scientist. He used it also for things with a time element. So maybe think about that. Yeah.
Hans Rosling has to be one of the great heroes of infographics. Ed or Corey, for that matter? No?
Who was it? Sorry? Me.
Did you
Yeah,
have
no,
anything
so
to add?
I absolutely agree with the figure thing. And I think the good thing is it's absolutely independent of the audience you're trying to address as well, because like figures just make your tweet so much more important. And as Tom pointed out before, if you use figures, you can use 3 per tweet. And that's like an incredible opportunity to share so much more information than you can actually get into the length of the tweet. The problem is if you use a GIF, use 1 per tweet. But again, animations are a great thing and will help to reach the audience. The other thing is obviously using hashtags. I mean, we're talking all the time about the World Seabird Twitter conference hashtag, which is kind of like obvious, but even using other kind of hashtags will kind of like increase your audience and will maybe also address other scientists working in similar subject areas, but not necessarily seabirds or people that weren't aware yet that the World Seabird conference is going on.
Yeah, I'm trying here to show an example of a good use of GIF file, which in a way that it can essentially explain many slides worth of information in just one tweet. That's what I think is an elegant example of how it can be done really nice and simply and really tell a lot, really.
Thanks. I think if I can talk about it, since I made it, it's very useful for methods because you have to present a lot of things in a very succinct way. Like when you have only 6 tweets, 1 for introduction, 1 for conclusion, and you get maybe 1 tweet for methods. So yeah, GIFs are very useful for that. You can use, I think Saskia has 4 pictures on Twitter now, not 3. But yeah.
Right.
But
that's great. That's
so,
good to
yeah,
know.
GIFs are
Following every day.
Yeah. I think when you make GIFs, you try to remember that it's going to go kind of fast. So try to keep things simple. That's why I use icons and stuff like that. Big numbers, big text. Yeah, and you can do it easily online too. You prepare your pictures ahead of time and then upload everything, and then you get the GIF
for free.
Yeah, or if you have Photoshop, you can do it there too, but it's expensive.
Mm-hmm. That's didn't mention is that you can use hashtags also to sort of join into other relevant topics. So one hashtag that gets used very frequently is, for example, ornithology, and I'm sure there are others for ecology or marine science, but I would say it would be a good idea to, after one of your early tweets, to use a couple of hashtags to try and attract people from outside to your presentation. Does anybody have anything else to add, Corey? No?
No, I think you all mostly covered it really well. I think those tips and tricks will be extremely helpful for people who especially are doing this for the first time. But I guess cautionarily, the only thing I want to add is that a great World Seabird Twitter conference presentation doesn't necessarily have to be extremely flashy. It's also in how you phrase your tweets as well, and how concise and clear you can make your research to a broad audience. So I think the GIFs are lovely. I'm looking forward to learning how to create them myself, but that's only a part of the presentation. So don't be intimidated if it's something that you haven't quite done before.
Also, just before, oh, sorry, no, you go first.
Okay, since we're on technical things, you should try your tweets before you're presenting. Just don't put a hashtag in it so people don't see them, or create a fake account or something. But just to make sure the pictures show well and the GIFs are working and things like that.
I think another way to do that is to make your account private, and then you can tweet and look at it yourself. Yeah. And then you can unprivate your account after you're done with that test, as long as everything works, and you delete those tweets as well, and no one will be able to see them.
That really kind of makes me think about Tweetdeck right now, right there. So, I mean, this is something I didn't use in the previous years. I'm not too sure if, like, probably not everyone is familiar with it. Just put it into Google, have a look at it. It will make your life so much easier in regards to Twitter, in regards to scheduling tweets, in regards to testing out tweets, if they're long enough, if they work with pictures, etc. So yeah, it's definitely a handy thing to look at, and yeah, easier for the conference.
Certainly. One, I might be maybe a bit childish in that regard, but I really love do things that relate to pop culture or whatever, and I think that's a simple way as well to make your presentation more interesting. You know, there's so many funny GIFs or memes out there that it should be possible to find some suitable to your. Saying everybody should do it, but if something obvious sort of comes to mind, it's really nice and refreshing to see those. I think we'll just proceed to question number 5, and it's very much overlaps with our previous question. What is the best way to explain something complicated in as few words as a tweet allows? Johan, do you have anything to add that you haven't already covered?
I think about it a lot before you do it. Rephrase the sentences as many times as you have to. It takes time to do a good tweet, I think, and do good graphics. So really think about what you want to convey in that tweet. And but then, like, you should try to keep the text simple. But Tom was saying you can still make some tweets that are more complicated than others, or more with more jargon. But then, just as we were saying, use graphics, use images, use GIFs, videos. I think videos are useful if they play within Twitter. If you have to go somewhere else to look at them, it's not as interesting. But yeah.
Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I agree with all that. I would say, I mean, figures definitely, you can get across a lot of information.
Mm-hmm.
So use figures. And also, yeah, given that you have the figures, don't sort of repeat all of that information in the tweets. You don't need to rewrite it out again. Another thing is, yeah, I mean, if something's complicated, don't maybe feel that you have to explain the whole thing. Maybe focus on one element of it, or, you know, you can maybe link out to an article somewhere that explains it in more detail. And if, yeah, I mean, if you have a really super complex study, then maybe consider, yeah, taking sort of one part of it. If you studied 15 species in an area, maybe take 2 of them. that would be easier, maybe. Those are my tips.
Yeah, I would lean towards that as well, to pick a sort of simple and relationship for your presentation, as opposed to trying to cover PhD or whatever it might be. Something of a, you know, with a very simple message hypothesis and some sort of conclusion, I think more easy to Twitter. Saskia, do you have anything to add, or Corey?
The only thing I could think of is, I think there's, I forget what the hashtag is, but there's some kind of hashtag where it's like explain your PhD in one tweet. And so apparently it is possible, but I think it's probably more snarky than what we're looking for in the World Seabird Twitter conference.
Yeah, so I think the hashtag is called Tweesis. I'm not sure if that's the one you are talking about. Yeah, there are like competitions at different universities where like PhD students actually try to bring that thesis across in one tweet. Yeah, I think everything has been said about like effective tweeting already. I think that is also like really important, and it has been like kind of like touched on before. Just be sure to start early. Don't start like half an hour before the conference, like me last year. It will, when you think, to condense your information down, and you will just make mistakes, and it's just not very effective. So start early.
And speaking of mistakes, try to stay scientifically accurate. Make sure you're not spreading wrong things on Twitter or stuff like that. But as Tom was speaking, I was like thinking it would be a good challenge to not use any words on your tweets, but just use a graph and do like a graphic novel for your Twitter conference. So if anybody out there is a good illustrator, they should do that.
So last year there has been one person, actually from my research group. He basically did his whole Twitter conference as a poem, which I thought was incredibly impressive. I'm not sure how effective it was necessarily in communicating the information he tried to bring across, but I think it was just a very creative way, communicating with the public as well. So that's another thing that hasn't been mentioned before, but there are prizes for best presenters at the conference. So what we're looking for there is creativity mainly. So effective communication, but also just showing us something that we haven't really seen before, a way of communicating science that's kind of new. So that would be.
Yeah, thanks for noting that. That's it's good to emphasize creativity, I think, in the conference. Heading to question number 6. How do you make sure that you don't miss out on some key presentations during the Saskia, could you start on that one? You mentioned Tweetdeck. How
Yes,
would you?
So, okay, I go on. Yeah, so Tweetdeck is definitely an effective way, but then I also said before there will be an interactive schedule. So that's the first thing you probably have to check out. You'll be able to look up what's going on when, so you can kind of like schedule which kind of presentations to attend. The other thing we will do is we will make a list with all presenters, which we will then share on Twitter. But watch that space, it's going to happen soon. And if you then use something like Tweetdeck, you can basically follow that list. So every single will be in the list, and as soon as a presenter will tweet something, it will come up there. The other thing is, in Tweetdeck, for example, you can also follow hashtags. So you could just follow the World Seabird Twitter Conference hashtag, which will probably give you also like a very good overview over what's going on during the conference.
Tom and Ivan, do you have anything? Do you have any good ideas on how you keep things organized during the Twitter conference?
Not really. I think just be organized ahead of time, just like any conference. You read the abstracts and see what's might interest you. The problem of doing that is that you might miss some thing that you wouldn't really look at, and they're very interesting. So I think the best way is just spend a few days on Twitter and look at everything. But it's a bit overwhelming, though.
Yeah, I would. Sorry, Tom, you go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I'd say the same things. I think you don't have to use TweetDeck as well. I mean, I think the web Twitter works quite well now. You can click through to view hashtags. But when you do that, take note at the top of the page there are options. I think the default is it comes up with top tweets, so it comes up with kind of maybe what's been retweeted most or what people are liking most. But you can also change it to latest, and then you can kind of follow it in real time. And there's also options for like people as well, so you can see who's been tweeting on there. So I think that's a good thing. And yeah, definitely look up the schedule, and you can note them down maybe in your electronic phone calendar or whatever, so you get a little sort of buzz, and then you load up Twitter at that point and have a look.
Yeah, I think that's an important thing to note, just that Twitter has moved to not putting tweets necessarily in chronological order. So you have to choose to make that an option if you are following along, just to make sure you're not just catching the top tweets or the ones that have been retweeted, but maybe ones that would be up since you last checked the hashtag.
Yeah, I can add one used has been Twitter lists. So they are you can compile lists on Twitter of and in relation to the Twitter conference, you could, for example, compile your own Twitter users that you are particularly interested in getting their presentations, and that would mean that even if they messed up their tags, you would get those you would get the tweets from them in a stream. If you use, for example, Tweetdeck, you can have that as one of your lines that run with the conference tags or whatever. It's something we did last year as well, and I imagine organizers will do it again this year to make a complete list of conference participants. So that way, if you subscribe to that list, you can from all the people on that list. That might potentially also pick up on a lot of noise, because everyone's not necessarily going to tweet only about the conference, but and you can manage it as you know yourself, make up lists. So
there
Corey,
was one thing. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Just one last thing that hasn't really been mentioned. I mean, it makes it almost sound like you have to be there when the presentation is going on, but that's actually the good thing about Twitter. You really don't. So you can read up theoretically on the whole conference after it's over. And we will, in fact, summarize all the tweets together, so to make it easier for everyone to do that. But also can't be there while someone is presenting something that you're really interested in. You're just able to go back to it and read up on it later on, and you are still able to ask questions, and the person will still respond. So it's something that actually goes on beyond the schedule. So it's not something that's really a certain time. Yeah.
Really good point. And even if you're going to be available for the Twitter conference, you might just for consolation, you might want to schedule your tweets so that no matter what happens, they will go out at the right time. If about the whole Twitter conference, I think that would be a good thing to do. I'm sure there will be quite a few people who won't be present at the conference. So scheduling is a very good way of still participating, and there's plenty of services to do it. There's Tweetdeck, there's Hootsuite, Buffer, plenty of free services that allow you to.
All right, so I guess with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. I especially want to thank today's guests. They're really representative of wonderful Seabird science and outreach, and I know that I don't want to miss their presentations during the upcoming conference. So feel free to follow them by searching for their Twitter handles, which are, for the most part, posted on their screens. Yvonne couldn't get his to work, unfortunately, but you're at Project Pelican, right? There's no underscore?
Yeah, there is underscore.
Oh, there is one?
Anyway. Yeah,
Okay,
Project
sorry.
underscore Pelican.
Thank you very much. So again, thank you to Saskia, Tom, and Yvonne for insights and contributions to creating and engaging in the upcoming Twitter conference.
Thank you.
These were the questions that we had for today for the broadcast, but don't you worry, we'll continue the conversation over on Twitter now. So many of you there, and hopefully a few of you might want to share your own ideas or insights into these same questions that our guests have answered for us. Thanks very much for joining us, and that's pretty much it.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks very much for hosting.
Thank you.
Cool.